Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is the Shankly Sessions, the Liverpool podcast we bring you each and every week on the upper tier. If you could head out to YouTube, smash that subscribe and bell notification button, and as always, like the video. Really, really important to drop those likes now. YouTube identifies that in its algorithm, so it'd be great if you could do that. Sorry about the kind of delay on this match reaction. It's kind of a weird one. I don't normally take this long, but last night I was doing a show during the game, so I needed to find time to actually go rewatch the game. I didn't see it all. I think I seen about the first 20 minutes and the last kind of 10. But safe to say, it was an absolute struggle for us again. We played well in patches, but the difficulty is you can see there we're missing 10 first team players out injured, and it's only the second game. And it's a little bit concerning. We'll get into some of my concerns in a little bit, but let's talk about Statman Stubbs is there. Enjoy the show, mate. I hope you're okay. I am. I'm much better now, Stephen. Head over and check out Stephen's channel there. It's excellent. He's doing some great stuff there with watch alongs and stuff like that. Check it out. I've been on it a few times. Appreciate the comments, Stephen. We need to really talk about the lineup before we really get into anything. This is the lineup we're staring at. And this was the concern that I expressed during pre-season and stuff like that, that once we started picking up injuries and once things started going skew-ways, the depth just simply isn't there. It just ain't there. We're into our second game. And I don't want to disrespect any player here, because a lot of the players that we talk about here have played a really important role in the success of Liverpool in the past, and have a role to play as well going forward in terms of the squad. But if you're kind of starting your second game with a bad result against Fulham, so we were on the back foot against Man City straight away. So you're going into your first home game and you're expecting an elevated performance and a reaction to that poor result at Fulham and poor performance. But we get hammered with injuries again. So if you look at that lineup that's there, Nat Phillips is in there. And we know how good Nat Phillips was 2 seasons ago in our push to get top four and getting third. He played a vital role in that. But if you're in your second game of the season and you're rolling out Nat Phillips into your central defence, you're rolling out James Milner into your midfield, we've got some serious problems. 10 first team players out injured. And we knew that Crystal Palace wasn't going to be easy. We knew they were going to come. Patrick Vieira has them well coached at this stage. He would have had them well up for the game at Anfield. But first 15 minutes, when we talk about the first 15 minutes, we were really, really good. We were pressing. We had the high line. And we were creating, albeit we were a little bit blunt up front. Could have had a couple of goals. Milner was unlucky with his one. I know Nunes had a chance as well. And Diaz had a chance as well. So we could have had a few up. I mean, after 15 minutes, we could have been 3 up. But we aren't. And that's something that's becoming more prevalent in the team as well. That we're beginning to need an awful lot of chances to generate a couple of goals. Which is a little bit concerning because, normally in front of goal, we'd be so clinical. But the issues that we have there, obviously, at the moment as well, are we have Diaz. I won't say he was new. I mean, he played for 6 months of last season, nearly had a pre-season and stuff like that, but new enough in that front three. You've got Darwin in the middle, who's still trying to find his feet and figure out what way it works. And you've got Salah there, who's adjusting to 2 new front men playing with him and trying to understand their movement and technique and stuff like that, which was built up over time with Mane and with Firmino. So it's a difficult one. And you look at the kind of the setup there. We're having Nunes in there as the striker. We're going still with a 4-3-3, and I'm not sure whether that still works. I think a change of formation is kind of needed to tolerate a striker up front like Nunes. But we did get off to a reasonable start. But then the worrying thing was after about 17 minutes, there was a little bit of a breakdown where we were still playing the high line. But we weren't playing the press game. And that was very, very concerning because what happened with Easy. He broke through and only for an offside decision. That was the warning sign. And then, of course, on 32 minutes, I think it was. Yeah, on 32 minutes, then ball comes into Guaita. He plays it out, lands at SA's feet. SA plays the through ball. Salah runs on and finishes with a sublime finish. Um, and Nat Phillips was caught out on it. Van Dijk tried to get back. But there seems to be, looking at some of those key players, the likes of Robertson, Van Dijk, Fabinho, those anchors at the back and stuff like that, they look tired already. They look really, really tired already. You look at Van Dijk getting back, and although he ran to get back, in that last couple of moments, if you look at him, he wasn't busting enough to throw his body on the line to block it or stop it or anything like that. It was like he felt he wasn't going to get there. So it's a little bit concerning at the moment. 2 games in, guys looking, a formation looking a little bit disjointed, trying to find itself, albeit with changes and injuries. A bench that would be very, very concerning, that lacks absolute depth at the highest level. And again, we're only playing Premier League games at the moment. Europe hasn't kicked back in yet. What happens when the Champions League kicks back in, or the domestic cups? We're going to have a real problem with this. And my biggest concern at the moment is, I listened to the press conference the other day and I spoke about it in the preview, where Jurgen, and look, don't come at me about Jurgen Klopp. At the end of the day, I love Jurgen Klopp. What he did with the club is fantastic. But we can't end this Jurgen Klopp era with just what we've won so far. We have to win some more stuff. We have to win a league. We have to win another Champions League. We have to really present it as an era. And that's going to be really, really difficult, because now we find ourselves 4 points behind Man City after 2 games. And we would have looked at those 2 games initially starting out in the league, and we would have said, right off the Craven Cottage and Fulham, could be a testy kind of game, but we should get through it because we should be levels above them. And we were taught a lesson. And then we have Crystal Palace at home. And obviously, look, we have to talk about the Núñez sending off as well. I mean, the red card. Your man Anderson was absolutely at him all evening. And it just spilled over and he lost the head. He needs to be a bit more professional than that. And he ended up headbutting him and getting a straight red. It looks like he's probably going to be missing for about 3 games because of violent conduct, I would imagine. And it was just kind of like Anderson was absolutely at him constantly in this game. But who were the senior guys on the pitch? And they don't have to take responsibility. Darwin Núñez has to take responsibility for his own actions. But if you've got a real good captain on the pitch there who recognises that that's happening, you're going to pull Darwin Núñez aside, who's a young player, only new in the team, and you're going to say to him, don't be feeding into that cop on, have a word with him and say, listen, back off it a little bit, you know what I mean? Don't be getting petulant and getting dragged into that. That's what they want you to do. You know, an old head on young shoulders, and get in there as a captain. You know, James Milner at the time, I think if James was still on, I'm not sure. I think he was. He should have been going over to Núñez and he should have been saying, come on, don't be getting caught up in this. Don't be getting caught up in that stuff. And I know it's frustrating for Núñez as a player as well. But, like, welcome to the Premier League. That's the way it's going to be. You have a big price tag on your back. You're going to be targeted. And guys are going to do that kind of thing to you. And you better learn how to react to it. We know he's Uruguayan. Listen, we had one before. They're hot-blooded. They're hot-blooded players, and the spills over sometimes, and it gets frustrating. But probably the worst debut you could make, a home debut, in a long, long time. And look, we know what Klopp had to say about it and stuff like that. He was really, really disappointed. To be honest, I think if the Núñez sending off hadn't happened, I think we would have got back into the game. We probably would have ran out 2-1 winners, which is what I had predicted. So it's so disappointing to get a draw. And even down to 10 men, we have to say, even down to 10 men, we were pushing forward. We were trying to dictate the game. We were trying to go and get the winner. And there's an interesting conundrum there as well that I heard people talking about today, that Núñez not being on the pitch and that middle section being a little bit open allowed for the space for Diaz to run into to score that goal, the equaliser, which I have to say has to be a goal of the month. winner, if not definitely a contender for top 2 or top 3. It was absolutely brilliant. He left 5 lads there, came across the box and straight into the far corner, which is a kind of a trademark goal for Luis Diaz. This is what he does. He cuts in from the left, across the right, and in the front of the box, and always goes for that far corner. We've already seen it in pre-season and stuff like that, where he clips the posts and stuff like that. He's done it a few times now. But the bigger problem at the moment, I think, is when you look at the squad. It's a real problem at the moment, and I'm concerned about Jurgen Klopp insofar as he's talking about going into the transfer market is one option. The other option is trying to find a resolution within the squad. Now, when I hear that we're trying to find a resolution within the squad, we've got 10 guys out injured, key players. Second game, we're rolling out Nat Phillips, James Milner, and stuff like that. I get really, really concerned when we're looking for some solutions in the squad. It's very, very concerning. And we know what happened last time we did that. We had midfielders playing in defence with all sorts of stupid stuff going on. Mark, welcome to the show. Thanks for jumping on there. Hey, Niall, only just joined. Liverpool look a little short in midfield. I know you've been banging on about this for weeks, but Tielemans is there for the taking. 100%, man. I've been banging on. Listen, I said it in how many shows at this stage. Last summer, we chased Yuri Tielemans and Yves Bissouma, and we were going to play the guts of 50 million for each of them. Yves Bissouma goes to Spurs for 25 million, and Tielemans is probably available for in around the same amount. So we could have got both those boys for the same price as what we were nearly willing to pay last summer for one of them. And it's just really, really concerning, Mark. My concern at the moment is the fact that we're looking for solutions to our problems within the squad that's already depleted by 10 first-team players. It just doesn't add up at all. And I'm still, the concern, I was looking at football there on Saturday, Nottingham Forest, I watched Neco Williams, who was absolutely brilliant for Nottingham Forest the other day. And you have to ask yourself, why are we letting a talent like that go? We're letting a talent like that go, and we're kind of becoming, and it's a big concern for me, we're kind of becoming Sentiment FC, if you like. And it's getting really, really concerning that we're picking guys and we're picking teams based on past glories from years gone by. And it's really, really, really concerning. I like to see a certain amount of loyalty within a manager, but I also like to see managers to be ruthless. And I just think at the moment, it's really, really difficult to see what's going on there at the moment. Now, I have to say last night there was a massive improvement at times compared to the Fulham game in terms of attitude and application and stuff like that. But our first 2 games, Fulham and Crystal Palace, we've got 2 points. We're 4 points off Man City. I think it's going to be a long, hard season. And to be honest with you, I think even the top 4, we need to do something in the market really, really quick over the next 2 weeks, or we're going to have a real problem even with our top 4 status. They're alone putting in a title challenge. And I think if this the way, you look at the injuries that are there, Thiago and stuff like that, Keita, these kind of players. Look, we know that they're going to pick up injuries. We know that they're going to go missing for portions of the season and stuff like that. Yet we don't react and we don't bring people in. You're talking about the boy Nunes, potentially going to Wolves now for 38 million or 36 million or something like that. We should be stepping in there, you know what I mean? And I know Klopp turns around and goes, you have to get the right player. You do have to get the right player. And we understand that. And we know that we're very cautious in terms of waiting for the right player to come along. But do any Reds fans really believe out there, if you're listening to this, are FSG really going to pony up 100 plus million next summer for Jude Bellingham? I don't believe it for a minute that they'll do it. And it's looking like next summer, if we don't go into the market this summer, then we're really writing off any chance of a title challenge and probably Champions League as well. So it's just going to be a summer of coasting through and competing and taking part and all that kind of stuff. But it's going to be really, really concerning when you look at the players that we've lost. We've lost Taki Minamino, who was really good in the cup competition, stuff like that, and scoring goals. We've lost Mane, which is absolutely huge. Not only for his goals and his contribution, but his work rate as well. He was an absolute pest up there, winning balls back and doing the press and stuff like that. And that was part of our problem last night. Part of our problem was when Crystal Palace got a foothold in the game, was when we backed off our press but kept our high line. They cut us out. Um, and the other players, as I mentioned, Neco Williams and stuff like that, and all. It's really, really, really concerning. It's like as if you look at it and the wrong players are going out the door, and we're keeping the players that we shouldn't be keeping. The likes of Ox and stuff like that. I mean, I don't think Ox Chamberlain has any place in this Liverpool team anymore. And I said it at the start of the pre-season that I think they should be moving him on, and then goes and gets injured and he's gone till October. And he'll probably come back in October and he'll get another injury and he'll be gone till January. And just, such a frustrating career and such a frustrating player when you're looking in as a fan. You look at the post game comments. Then let's talk about the post game comments. Vieira referenced the importance of his team's ability to keep their organisation and pay tribute to SA, who he said was different class. 100% agree. I also found as well when we were trying to dig in as well, we were back to the same thing again, pushing up the wings and just lobbing aimless balls into the middle there. And I've seen that time and time and time and time again. You know what I mean? It's so frustrating to watch as a fan, because we don't have that creativity in the middle to bring the ball up the middle and open up that defence and stuff like that. And that's what frustrated us last year. That low block frustrated us last year. Just lobbing balls in, hoping that we land on a second ball or hoping that we get on the end of something, and it has to be so precise, and it just doesn't happen. And that was our frustration last year where we dropped points, and here we are again. We've dropped another 4 points, you know what I mean, in total. And it's just, Klopp also described the midweek injuries to Joel Matip and Roberto Firmino as like having a witch in the building. It's just, some of them we know even Joel Matip has to be kind of maintained in a certain way. Otherwise, he will pick up injuries. We've seen it in the past. Thiago's not a surprise. Keita's not a surprise. Maybe it's a surprise because it's early in the season, but not really a surprise in terms of picking up injuries. He also said on Nunes, he said it was not the reaction you want to see, but didn't wish to overblow the situation either. I think you want to be careful in what you're saying there about overblowing the situation. You could argue that the boy getting sent off cost us 2 points. You could also argue now that our match coming up against Man United, we're going to go with a front three probably of Diaz, Firmino if he's not injured, and also Salah. So we're going to be back to that front three again because Nunes is probably going to be missing for 3 games, which is really, really frustrating. If you look at some of the stats, let's look at some of the stats from the game last night. Shots on target 4-3, shots off target 10-3, block shots 9-0, possession 72-28. That 72-28 is a real concern for me, especially when we went down to 10 men to have that much possession and that much control in the game. Yet Crystal Palace only needed a small amount of that possession to be effective. Their shots on target was 3, and of course they scored 1. But we had 23 shots in total, and out of 23 shots we had 3 on target. They had 3 on target and 3 off target. Corners 4-2, yellow cards we had 2, they had 4, and red cards was 1. Obviously Darwin Nunes, and they had none. So yeah, you just look at some of them there. You look at the volume of shots that are going in there. Yet when you look at on target compared to, it's like 20% or something like that, 25%. So we need to figure out a way to get the boys more between the sticks so they can get more shots on target, which ultimately will create more goals. I know Darren spoke about it on the Premier League preview. If you switch Salah into the middle and you put him in front of goal, he might be a little bit more effective in terms of finishing off chances because he's between the sticks rather than cutting in from the left and having to do all that work. And I fully agree with Darren, and we've seen some of the changes in the formation yesterday, and it's somewhat bared fruit. I wouldn't say it ultimately did, but I mean, Zaha, the way he was playing last night, he was in much more potent kind of positions at times. So great shout out to Darren there on the show. He also called the change in the formation for Aston Villa as well, which bared fruit for them as well. So great show from Darren. Let's get into the player ratings, and this is always a tough one. This is one that I hate because I hate rating players. I don't even like rating players at the best of times. Um, even when we play well and stuff like that, I just think it's something that we have to do it, but it's tough. If you look at Allison, we'll start with Allison. Then I give Allison a 7. Probably could have given him an 8. I thought he was good on the one-on-ones. Didn't really do a whole lot wrong, and stood up to those, save those one-on-ones, which is what we expect from him. Trent, I gave a 5 to. Trent's a real conundrum at the moment because I think the job that we're asking Trent to do at the moment is, we're asking him to play there at the back. He's playing into midfield. Sometimes he's dropping into a 10 role. We just don't really know. We're going to have to figure out either get a right back and put Trent in midfield, or get a right back and put Trent wherever we want to put him. But I think the job that we're asking him to do at the moment, I think it's all over the place and it's a little bit disjointed. And it's creating a problem in the defence as well in terms of a potential overload when the ball breaks down. So I give him a 5. I think some of his passing last night was really, really good. But ultimately, I think he drifted out of the game, and he also went into this just aimlessly banging in crosses into the box, not really any conviction on them or stuff like that, or pace or speed, or picking out a player the way he normally does, and he's so accurate. But again, I think because of the injuries and the changes in the personnel and the lack of depth on the bench and stuff like that, I think they're struggling to find their rhythm and their pattern of play at the moment. Nat Phillips, gave him a 4. Normally a really, really good performer, but caught out badly for the Salah goal. Van Dijk on the cover as well. I also give Van Dijk a 4. I just think he looks tired at the moment. I don't think he's back to his overall best at the moment. I just think he looks a bit tired. Either tired or lacking a bit of fitness. Normally you would expect him to power through and potentially get back for that Salah goal and stuff like that, and he kind of half got back. Robinson, I gave a 3 to. I think Robbo, in terms of his defensive work, you couldn't go wrong with him, solid as that. But going forward, he's offering very little at the moment, and there's probably calls for Costas. I know Costas came on as a sub, but Costas' delivery of his ball into the box and his passing, across the halfway line is well above Andy Robinson's. Robbo, again, just seems like another guy who's a bit struggling a little bit, to say the least, and maybe carrying a little bit of a hangover from last season. So I'll give him a 3. Fabinho, I'll give a 5 to. Played okay last night, but ultimately got turned by SA for that through ball to Saha for the goal. Normally he'd be solid as hell, and he'd sort that out and stuff like that, but didn't. Elliot, I gave a 7 to. He's always trying to penetrate, always looking forward, positive in his thinking and stuff like that, trying to pick out people and stuff like that. But again, I think he's trying to find a partnership with Salah there in terms of playing those clever balls and overlapping runs and stuff like that. And at times it just got a little bit clustered and a little bit a little bit heavy traffic at times between the two of them and stuff like that. Ultimately, I gave him a 7 because I think he did play well, but I think it was the system that was a little bit disjointed as opposed to Harvey's thinking within the play. Ultimately, he was man of the match as well. Milner, I gave a 4 to. He was bright in the early stages, first 15 minutes, putting himself about. Very unlucky with that chance that he had. Keeper came flying out and he popped at it really, where all he had to do was just clip it over him really, and it would have been in the back of the net, but unlucky. I have to say the Logan beard, the Wolverine beard on him really suits him. He looks class. But that's just a side note, of course. But yeah, I gave him a 4. I think after that first 15 minutes, I think he just drifted out of the game, and then I think it was on 63 minutes, then he was subbed off for Henderson. Again, just shown this is where we're at with the squad. The front men, Diaz, I gave a 7 to, mainly because he brought a little bit of energy and a little bit of guile and stuff like that. Again, his goal was absolutely excellent, but there should be so much more in there for Luis Diaz, and I think there is. But I think he will find his feet a lot more as we go along. That goal would have done him the world of good, albeit that we finished with a draw. Salah, I give a 5 to. Salah's form at the moment is really, really concerning, and more concerning insofar as his form, apart from last week where he picked up his first day goal that he normally does and stuff like that. And again, it was kind of a sloppy goal as well. But he seems to be still struggling. Coming in from the right and stuff like that. And I've noticed at times he's just trying to do a little bit too much. And instead of doing kind of what Diaz does, what he used to do, where he'd cut in from the right, go across the edge of the box and let fly with a shot, he seems to be trying to cut in from the right and then switch back to go down to the byline to cross the ball in. I'd be saying to the boy, cut in from the right, go across the box and bang it, have a go and stuff like that, the way you normally do, like some of those fabulous goals he scored against Chelsea and stuff like that in similar situations. We haven't seen that for a while. And he seems to be struggling as well. You see him, even that ball that was played down in the latter stages of the match, and he didn't make it to it. Normally, you would expect a Salah to get to that, control it, and hold it there and do something with it, but the ball just ran out, and he didn't get to it in time. So I do think the boys. I think last week against Fulham, there was a kind of an arrogance and a complacency about it. I think in terms of this week, I think there was just a little bit, because of the injuries, there was disjointment and stuff like that, albeit we've seen some improvements from the Fulham performance. Um, and as I said, to have that amount of possession, being down to 10 men and stuff like that, you actually played better, um, nearly with 10 men than what we were doing with 11 men. Morris is in the comments here. Morris, how are you? Worrying first two, but very early doors. See, the problem there, Morris, with it being early doors as well, and we seen this last year as well. When you draw these games, it's very, very hard to claw back with City. Um, they're just so, they just go out and turn out. And look, they'll get injuries as well. There's no doubt. They'll draw games as well. But more often than not, these games, the likes of the Palace game, and I know Palace did a kind of a number on them, but the Palace game, the Fulham game, like you wouldn't expect City to go to Craven Cottage and drop 2 points. And that's my real concern at the moment. We had a decent start to the season in terms of the fixture list. And now coming up Monday, we've got Man United. Um, and they'll want to put things right, because they've had a disastrous start, so they can't get any worse. So they're going to come out wanting to put on a performance at home. We're going to be missing key players still. God knows what midfield is going to go out there. As I said, I presume the front three are going to be Diaz, Firmino, and Salah. Um, and it's a vital game now for us. We have to win that game now. Um, and I hope we do, because if we don't, a draw or a loss, we're going to be in serious trouble. But it's really, really worrying, Morris, and I don't really think about it being early doors. I just look at those fixtures and I compare them to what City might do and stuff like that, and I think they're not going to drop points the way we're dropping points. So we're going to have to play catch up. And what this does now is, what it really does is, if you really want to make a title charge, and I don't think squad wise, unless we bring in a few players, I don't think our squad is anywhere near mounting a title challenge. Um, I really think we're going to have to beat City home and away in order to make up the deficit, and I just don't see that happening. Morris back again. Would you take Shelby back to fill a void if he was fit, Niall? Um, I wouldn't go that far, but there's certainly other midfielders out there that I would definitely take back. I do like Shelby. I'm a Shelby fan. Um, I even liked him at Liverpool when he used to bang in some of those long range goals and stuff like that. But we are desperate at the moment, and we are struggling. But we're not quite that desperate, because we do have money, and the gaffer just needs to sit down with FSG and he needs to pull the trigger on it and maybe land a Tillemans, or when you think about it, like any midfielder that would come in realistically at a certain level improves our midfield instantly. Nunes would improve our midfield instantly. Barella would improve our midfield greatly. Tillemans improves our midfield. And there's a whole host. I mean, you could name 10 midfielders out there at the moment in the market. Some you might be able to get, some you might not be able to get. But every one of those midfielders improves our midfield greatly. Declan Rice, absolutely. Declan Rice will greatly improve our midfield. But FSG are not going to drop 80, 90, 100 million on Declan Rice. And I don't expect them to drop that either on Jude Bellingham. They told us last summer that we were going to get a midfielder this summer, and they haven't followed through on it. And they've kind of spoofed us a little bit. Now they're telling us this summer that next summer we're going to try and sign Jude Bellingham. And there's going to be a lot of teams in for Jude Bellingham, and there's going to be a lot of teams that come in for him that will offer him way more money than what we offer him, including City. Might come in from God knows what Real might do. Who knows? I know they've a young midfield coming through there and stuff like that. I think PSG might be looking at him. Who knows? I say a lot of teams will be looking at him, will offer him a lot more money. And that will be the concern. Is he going to downplay that money on the basis of his friendship and his admiration for Jordan Henderson? I don't know whether that stacks up or not. But the likelihood is if we don't go in at this transfer window, we're going to need 3 midfielders next summer. And are they going to go out and buy 3 midfielders when they're touting one at the moment is going to be over 100 million? It's going to be the Darwin Núñez situation, isn't it? Where they're going to go out, and if they do spend big on Jude Bellingham, that's going to be it. They're going to cut the window short. There'll be nothing else coming in. And we'll still be in a situation where we have Thiago, who we know is going to get injured. We have Keita, who we're unsure whether he's at the level and gets injured as well. We've Jordan Henderson, who's going to be another year on. We've got James Milner, who's going to be another year on. We literally are not going to have any midfield. Ox is probably going to be moved on. This season will dictate whether Curtis Jones stays or goes. That's literally our whole midfield when you think about it, with the exception of Harvey Elliott and Carvalho. Everything else, and Fabinho, of course. And Fabinho will be another year on as well. So it's really, 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 really concerning at the moment. With the success that Klopp has had, the board can't let this happen. The man put Liverpool back on the elite level. Listen, there's no shortage of money. Anyone who comes on here and tells me that FSG doesn't have money are absolutely talking rubbish. There is plenty of money there. They got a bonus of 150 million there in the summer for something or other. The kit deals are going great. The commercial deals are absolutely huge. We're reporting now that we have the biggest fan base in the US and all this kind of stuff and all. LeBron James is involved and stuff like that and all. There's no reason in the next 2 weeks, except for what we're talking about in terms of, I know Klopp said there's no stubbornness and stuff like that, but there kind of has to be, because if Jurgen Klopp goes to the board and says, this is what I need, surely they're going to back him. They're not going to drop him in the meat grinder. And if you're able to get a Tielemans for 25 million and potentially someone else maybe for 30 or 35 million or whatever it is, bring in those 2 midfielders and give him what he needs to have a proper run at the title race this season and stuff like that. But Morris, I totally agree. He brought us back to the elite level, but you know yourself, most of those teams that stay at the elite level, you look at Man City this season, what they've done. Raheem Sterling gone, Zinchenko gone, Jesus gone, Alvarez brought in, Haaland brought in, Calvin Phillips brought in, and still not finished bringing in players. This is how teams evolve at the highest level. They spot a situation. There's no sentiment with the likes of Sterling and Zinchenko and Jesus, who have all been really, really good players for Man City and pivotal players at times in certain, league and cup runs and stuff like that and all. But when Pep makes a decision that the team has to evolve, Sentiment FC goes out the window, Romance FC goes out the window. Those guys are shown the door, and new blood is brought back in to work with, and that's how they keep on evolving, and that's how they keep on winning things. Whereas we're sticking by the Curtis Jones, we're sticking by the Oxes, we're sticking by the Jordan Hendersons, we're sticking by the James Milners. And that's what ultimately will come back to bite us, that we're not ruthless enough in terms of looking at the club and the club's success as opposed to the names that are on the back of the jerseys. And this could come back to bite Klopp on the backside. But we've 2 weeks, to remedy it, and it needs to be sorted. But going into the season, if this window closes and this is what we have, we're going to be in serious, serious trouble. I could say, to be honest with you, I don't see even that team. And even if we get some of their injuries back, looking at them at the moment with the pressure they're under, the disjointment, trying to figure out the play again and all that kind of stuff, this could take another 3-4 games, maybe 5, to figure out what we're actually doing and to get players back. And before you know, Man City are going to be out of sight. Champions League is going to be upon us, so we're playing 2 games a week, which ultimately is going to lead to more tiredness and more injuries. And I could say is really faltering this year. I think even top four might be a struggle. You look at Arsenal, who now, Morris, you're a fan of Arsenal, who are doing great at the moment. I know it's only 2 games in and it's early days, but they really look good. And they look like they know what they're doing. They look like they're being well coached, and they look like they're playing to a system. You look at Spurs at the moment, grinding out that draw the other day with Chelsea and all, with Conte and stuff like that. They're going to have a big say in the top four and stuff like that. Chelsea, probably when they bring in more players before the end of the window and stuff like that, are going to look like a real prospect as well. They're going to have a say in the top four. Whereas we're looking quite blunt. We've got a bunch of injuries. We haven't really evolved the squad the way we thought we would. And it's not looking good at the moment. It's not looking good. And if you're a Liverpool fan out there, and you want to, you want to hide behind the reality of the facts and stuff like that, and you want to sit there and you want to talk about, how great this player was 3 years ago and how great this player was and pivotal he was for our Premier League win and our Champions League win and stuff like that. Fine, that's all well and good if you want to show that loyalty. You're entitled to it and you're dead right to it. But the reality is, it's not going to generate a league this year, and it's not going to generate a Champions League either. And that's literally what Liverpool is supposed to be about. It was all brilliant last season. We went out and we won those 2 domestic cups. But there's not a Liverpool fan out there who can't tell me after the Champions League final that they weren't disappointed that we didn't land a league when we were 10 minutes away from doing it. 80 minute, we were 10 minutes away from landing the league, and look at the Champions League, look at the performance in the Champions League and stuff like that and all that. The warning signs have been there. We know, because we know in that Champions League, I think at least 3 of our players played probably injured. And on top of that as well, you've got Konate, who was our man of the match. So what does that tell you? But yeah, very, very concerning, Morris. They have to back him, and they will back him. And I think if he wants players, I think they know they'll get the players in from. But if we're going to sit here and we're going to think that this player doesn't quite fit, this player doesn't kind of fit and all. And look, we have to accept what Klopp says, because his eye for a player so far between himself and Pep Linders has been pretty good. But it's a real, real concern at the moment. So blunt, so disjointed. So many injuries. And I don't want it. I don't want this to go the way it went before, where it's like we're blaming injuries all the time. We have a transfer window. We have money. We know what it's going to take to sort it. Just need to go out and do it. Always a tough one, Reds. But we'll be back again next week. We're up against our biggest rivals, Man United, next week. Can we keep them at the foot of the table? Can we put on a performance? Can we dig deep and show some work rate as well as creativity and a bit of end product up front as well? Shame that Nunez won't get to play against them. I'm sure he'll be hurting over that as well. He probably didn't realise at the time. But it's down to Bobby now to step up, and Bobby needs a massive step up from where he was against Fulham, because against Fulham he was absolutely shocking. So he has a massive job to play and a part to play next week at Old Trafford. But as we're saying, we can go there and sometimes it just falls in place for us and we bang 3 or 4. And that's what's going to need to happen next week. Ultimately, we have to get the win whatever way we do it. We can't come out again with another draw or a loss, because to have 3 points from 3 games is just a disaster of a start to the season. If you want to contact the show, it's the upper tier podcast at gmail.com. Darren will be back on Thursday. I'm not sure if I'll be with him for Beat the Bookie and the Premier League preview. I will send on my bets and my picks. I hope you've jumped on that 33-1 that we put up there the other day. I know Morris did it, landed a nice few quid off it, so I hope you're following us. It doesn't happen always, but it was nice to start second week around. Also, make sure you're checking out Fantasy Chancer, the show that we do on the podcast every week. Morris is doing it. It's the fantasy football one, really, really good one. Really interesting show and stuff like that. Check that out as well. I'm hoping I'll be on holidays, but I'm hoping to get a preview and a match reaction up for the Man United game. And I'll probably tie in with Darren on a couple of shows as well. Until next time, Reds, got to keep the faith, but we got to spend some money. We got to get some depth in that squad, or we're going to be in serious trouble. Cheers, Reds.